They want to take down the interview I did with Debbie Lenhead, the one about the so-called forensic investigation with Pete. But to be clear, it wasn't really a forensic investigation at all. Still, they're going after it hard. They've already submitted a takedown request to YouTube, demanding that the video be removed. The issue, though, is that the interview isn't confined to YouTube anymore. It's been uploaded to 8 different platforms. And now, the internet is ablaze with speculation. Ever since Joni Lamb reportedly demanded YouTube take down Laura Lynn's explosive interview, people can't stop asking the same question. What is she trying to hide? What started as an innocent, low-key conversation quickly spiraled into an online firestorm that left fans of Daystar stunned and insiders whispering about damage control, hidden truths, and a desperate attempt to erase what was said. Yet, as everyone knows, once something is online, can it ever really disappear? It began simply enough. No flashy production, no breaking headlines, just 2 women sitting face to face, a camera quietly recording their exchange. Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson, known for her fearless commentary and willingness to tackle difficult topics, had invited Debbie Lenhead to discuss something that had been troubling her for a long time, a supposed forensic investigation involving a man named Pete. Debbie didn't arrive to gossip or sensationalize. She came prepared, with notes, dates, documents, and a list of unanswered questions that few others had the courage to ask. The tone of the interview was calm, but her words were heavy with meaning. She spoke about missing files, inconsistent stories, and the nagging feeling that what had been labeled as an official investigation didn't add up. To Debbie, it felt more like a cover-up than a genuine search for truth. Throughout the conversation, Laura Lynn listened carefully, barely interrupting, letting Debbie speak her mind. Even through the screen, viewers could feel the quiet tension between them. When the interview first went live, it didn't go viral immediately. Instead, it crept slowly across private Facebook groups and Telegram channels, quietly shied among viewers who sensed something significant beneath the surface. But the calm didn't last. Once larger content creators began clipping key moments and reposting them on YouTube and Rumble, the story erupted. Viewers started debating, speculating, and demanding answers. What had started as a quiet discussion suddenly became a digital wildfire. The interview's power lay not only in Debbie's words, but in the way she spoke them, with calm conviction, like someone who had seen too much to stay silent any longer. To some, she was courageous, to others, dangerously reckless. But regardless of opinion, everyone was paying attention. Within days, the video had spread everywhere, gathering thousands of views and stirring deep conversations across multiple platforms. Laura Lynn never imagined that this single interview, quiet, intimate, and seemingly harmless, would explode into a full-blown controversy. But as the numbers climbed, so did the whispers. And somewhere behind the scenes, powerful figures began to take notice, and not in a good way. When Joni Lamb first learned about the interview, it came as a casual text message from one of her staff. "You might want to see this." She was in her office, halfway through answering emails, when curiosity made her click the link. What she saw made her heart sink. On her screen, Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson sat across from Debbie Lenhead, discussing what they referred to as a forensic investigation. But to Joni, it didn't sound like fact-finding. It sounded like an attack. Debbie's words were measured but pointed, her confidence unsettling. She mentioned missing documents, contradictory testimonies, and questionable integrity, all revolving around a man named Pete, someone Joni knew personally. As Joni listened, she crossed her arms, her expression hardening. This wasn't idle gossip, it was a potential crisis. Even though her ministry, Daystar, wasn't directly named, it didn't take much for viewers to connect the dots. And once those connections were made, she knew the fallout could be enormous. By the following morning, her fears were confirmed. Clips were circulating online, people were tagging her name, and speculation was everywhere. Comments flooded social media. Is this about Daystar? Is Joni hiding something? Joni immediately called an emergency meeting. Her senior producers, legal advisors, and PR team gathered around the long glass conference table. The room was thick with unease as she played the interview on a large screen, skipping through timestamps and pausing at critical points. Debbie's voice echoed through the speakers. The timelines don't match. The documents are missing. Someone's hiding the truth. When the video ended, silence filled the room. Finally, one of the lawyers spoke up. This could get ugly. Joni agreed. Calm but determined, she gave a single order: file a complaint. By noon, her team had sent a formal takedown request to YouTube, describing the video as defamatory, misleading, and harmful. In their view, it contained false information that could damage reputations and spread confusion. For Joni, this wasn't just about image or pride. It was about protecting the ministry she and her late husband, Marcus, had spent decades building. To her, this was more than media drama. It was spiritual warfare disguised as journalism. But the internet doesn't wait for legal paperwork. Within hours, Joni realized she was fighting a losing battle. The interview wasn't just on YouTube anymore. It had been mirrored on Rumble, Telegram, BitChute, Vimeo, and even Facebook Reels. Every time one version was taken down, two more appeared. Her advisors warned her about the Streisand effect, the phenomenon where attempts to suppress information only make people more interested. But Joni stood firm. If it's false, it shouldn't exist, she told her team. I won't let lies stand unchallenged. Behind closed doors, she reached out to trusted allies, pastors, Christian media figures, and friends in the faith community. She wasn't seeking pity. She was building a defense network. This isn't about silencing truth, she explained. It's about stopping gossip before it destroys good people. To her, this was a test, one that threatened not just her name, but her ministry's credibility. If they can do this to me, she told one pastor, they can do it to any of us. Yet not everyone agreed with her approach. Some quietly warned that trying to remove the video might backfire, drawing even more attention. Others advised her to address the controversy publicly, to face it head-on and present her side of the story. But Joni hesitated. Words, once spoken, could be twisted. Intentions could be misread. And the media loved nothing more than a scandal involving faith leaders. So, she chose to remain silent, at least in public. Privately, though, she was relentless. She ordered her team to follow up with YouTube, to track every repost, and to strengthen Daystar's internal review policies. She instructed staff to vet every guest, every topic, every statement before it went on air. If one interview could cause such chaos, she wouldn't let another one catch her off guard. At home, the emotional toll was heavy. Joni had faced criticism before, but this felt different. It came not just from outsiders, but from within her own circle, people whispering that she might have something to hide. Late at night, she prayed for clarity, pacing her living room and asking for divine guidance. Lord, help me protect what you built, she whispered. Let truth prevail. That Sunday, Joni walked onto the Daystar stage in Dallas, just as she had countless times before. The lights were bright, the cameras rolling, the audience hushed. She smiled, calm, collected, and unwavering. And though the storm outside was still raging online, she never mentioned the controversy. To the world, it was just another Sunday. But to those who knew her best, that quiet composure said everything. The battle was far from over. To her followers, Joni appeared calm and unshaken, a woman of faith who seemed untouched by the chaos swirling around her. But behind that steady composure was someone quietly struggling to keep her world from falling apart. The weight of criticism, betrayal, and misunderstanding pressed heavily on her shoulders, even as she tried to maintain grace under fire. Meanwhile, Lynn refused to step back or stay silent. She took to social media, tweeting and posting with boldness, announcing that her controversial interview had been uploaded to 8 platforms and would not be taken down. Her followers cheered her on, framing the entire ordeal as a fight for truth. They accused Joni of censorship, claiming her actions were proof that the interview had struck a nerve and was exposing something too uncomfortable to face. The internet quickly fractured into opposing camps. One side stood firmly with Lynn, waving the flag of free speech, while the other rallied to protect Daystar and Joni's reputation. For Joni, this wasn't just online noise, it was personal. Every headline, video, and cutting comment questioning her faith or her integrity left scars that couldn't be seen but were deeply felt. She had dedicated decades of her life to building Daystar into one of the world's largest Christian networks, spreading messages of hope and spiritual strength. But now, the very digital landscape that had once carried her ministry to millions was being used to turn against her. Still, Joni refused to lash out. Instead, she responded with quiet determination and resolve. I won't fight fire with fire, she confided to her close circle. I'll fight it with truth and patience. Yet, truth had already become blurred. In the court of public opinion, everyone had their own version, their own interpretation of what was real. And no matter what Joni said, or didn't say, the story continued to grow and twist on its own. Her eventual response was not the outburst her critics had anticipated. It was measured, deliberate, and introspective. Joni wasn't chasing headlines or public sympathy. She was fighting for something far more sacred: control over her message, her faith, and her legacy. To her supporters, her restraint was a sign of inner strength and grace under pressure. To her critics, it was fear masquerading as calm. But to Joni herself, it was pure survival. In an age where one viral video could undo a lifetime of work, survival had become the only battle worth fighting. By dawn the next day, the internet had turned Lynn's interview into something far larger than anyone had predicted. What began as a simple conversation had exploded into a digital wildfire, spreading uncontrollably across platforms. The clip appeared everywhere, on YouTube, Rumble, Telegram, Facebook, Twitter, even TikTok. People weren't just watching. They were dissecting every second of it, analyzing tone, gestures, and phrases as if each moment held hidden meaning. The interview became evidence in an ever-growing debate about truth, censorship, and power. At first, it looked like just another viral trend destined to fade in days. But this one had a different energy. The moment Joni Lamb's takedown request became public, everything changed. What started as quiet speculation turned into a full-blown movement for free speech. Comments flooded in accusing Joni of trying to silence uncomfortable truths. Hashtags like #JustLetTheVideoStay and #WhatIsJona hiding began trending in small online communities before spreading far and wide. Lynn's supporters hailed her as fearless, a woman brave enough to challenge a powerful Christian media figure. They claimed this was bigger than one interview. It was about transparency, accountability, and breaking a long-standing system of control. To them, Joni's efforts to remove the video only confirmed its importance, suggesting that someone was hiding something. But Joni's supporters saw the entire situation differently. To them, the video wasn't brave, it was reckless. They believed it spread half-truths and rumors disguised as journalism, endangering reputations and spreading confusion. They defended Joni as a responsible leader trying to prevent misinformation from destroying lives. "This isn't censorship," one of her fans tweeted. "This is wisdom." And so, the internet became divided in two, one half shouting for free speech, the other pleading for responsibility. In the middle stood YouTube, caught in an impossible position: remove the video and be accused of silencing truth, or keep it up and face potential legal trouble. As the controversy deepened, creators across platforms jumped in. Reaction videos, live streams, and podcasts began dissecting every aspect of the situation. Some treated it like an investigation, while others mocked it as yet another church scandal gone digital. Every voice added more fuel to the fire. Some users even claimed they had insider information, alleging that Daystar's lawyers were threatening smaller creators, though none of it could be verified. But at that stage, verification no longer mattered. The story had moved beyond facts. It had become emotional, tribal, and unstoppable. For Joni, watching it unfold was heartbreaking. Her name was trending for all the wrong reasons. She chose not to go on camera, hoping silence might bring peace, but silence only seemed to amplify the chaos. Old clips of her sermons resurfaced online, twisted into memes and punchlines. "She preaches truth," one comment sneered, "but can't handle it when it's about her." The mockery hurt deeply, not because it wounded her pride, but because it undermined her mission. Meanwhile, Lynn's world was transformed overnight. Her audience doubled, her inbox flooded with praise and criticism alike. Some called her a hero, others labeled her a manipulator. Yet she stood firm, posting defiantly, "If they are trying this hard to silence me, then I know I'm over the target." That single sentence spread faster than the original interview itself, shared and reposted across social media. To her supporters, she became a symbol of resistance. But not everyone saw her that way. Journalists began questioning her ethics, pointing out that the claims she platformed weren't verified. Some accused her of chasing fame through controversy. Still, in the frenzy of public opinion, truth had become something people felt, not something they fully understood. Inside YouTube headquarters, the debate turned serious. Lawyers and moderators examined Joni's takedown request, fully aware that any decision would ignite backlash. Take the video down, and they'd be accused of bowing to pressure. Leave it up, and they risked legal fallout. There was no winning move. And while executives deliberated, the video continued spreading unchecked across platforms that ignored takedown notices entirely. By week's end, the situation had evolved into something surreal. Small churches began hosting prayer meetings about it. Pastors used it as a sermon topic, warning congregations about the dangers of misinformation and the importance of truth in the digital age. News outlets framed it as a clash between Christian media and free speech, and the more people talked about suppressing the video, the more unstoppable it became. For Joni, it was her worst nightmare come to life. She had spent her career mastering television, an environment she could control, where messages were polished, edited, and precise. But now she faced an uncontrollable digital storm. The internet had taken her story and turned it into something wild, unpredictable, and permanent. For Lynn, it felt like vindication, proof that her voice mattered and that transparency was worth the risk. But for everyone else watching, it became something even bigger than a feud. It was a reflection of the modern world, a mirror showing just how fragile truth has become in an era where emotion travels faster than facts. In the end, it wasn't just about Joni or Laura anymore. It was about trust, belief, and who truly gets to shape the narrative when everyone has a platform. And as the dust continued to rise, one unsettling realization remained. In today's world, truth isn't lost. It's rewritten, reshared, and reinterpreted until no one can tell where it began. No one seemed to be in control anymore. The interview that had once been contained within its quiet boundaries had broken free, and there was no putting it back. When the chaos finally began to slow, the internet didn't calm down, it merely shifted tone. The flood of outrage, fiery arguments, and viral hashtags slowly melted into something heavier, something reflective. People sat staring at their screens, no longer fixated solely on Joni Lamb or Lynn Thompson, but on the larger implications of what this incident revealed about the uneasy marriage between faith and media. For decades, Christian broadcasting had been viewed as a sanctuary, a safe haven where believers could retreat from the noise of the outside world to find hope, prayer, and connection. It was a world built upon trust. Audiences believed that those who appeared on screen were driven by divine purpose, that their messages were inspired by faith, not fueled by profit or power. But after this controversy, that sacred trust no longer felt the same. Something had fractured deep beneath the surface, and everyone could sense it. The tension between Joni and Lynn wasn't just a simple clash over one interview. It was a battle for control. It raised uncomfortable questions about who holds the right to define truth in an age dominated by digital media. Joni believed she was protecting integrity, preventing misinformation that could destroy reputations and ministries. Lynn, on the other hand, believed she was tearing down walls of secrecy that had been left standing for far too long. Both women felt they were defending what was right. Yet, to the public watching from afar, it became impossible to distinguish where genuine conviction ended and the thirst for control began. As the controversy spread, discussions of censorship became unavoidable. Was Joni safeguarding truth, or shaping it to fit her own narrative? Was Lynn a brave truth-teller or merely a provocateur seeking attention? These questions rippled across social media platforms, podcasts, and church communities. And as people argued, one unsettling truth emerged. The boundary between responsible leadership and outright censorship had nearly vanished. One group cried out that the church had grown soft, its leaders too powerful and too polished, hiding behind cameras, tax exemptions, and corporate branding. They claimed faith-based media had transformed into an industry, more about image than integrity. The other side warned that the internet had made everyone a self-appointed judge, hungry for outrage and indifferent to facts. Accountability, they argued, had morphed into a public spectacle of humiliation. Both sides had valid points, and both were equally weary from the noise. Behind the digital storm, Joni tried to steady herself. She stopped addressing the video publicly, yet the tension lingered in the air like static. Inside Daystar's offices, whispers circulated. Staff members quietly discussed the fallout while viewers sent messages demanding clarity and transparency. Some longtime donors withdrew their support, disappointed and disillusioned. Others rallied behind her, flooding her inbox with words of encouragement, prayer, and love, urging her to stay strong. Joni read every message. Some nights she remained in her dimly lit office long after everyone had left, wondering how something that began as a mission to share faith and hope had spiraled into a national debate over censorship and control. Meanwhile, Lynn was enduring her own kind of turmoil. Her goal had been to ignite a conversation about honesty within the church, and she succeeded, but not in the way she expected. The backlash was overwhelming. Accusations poured in, hate mail cluttered her inbox, and the noise became relentless. Friends warned her that she had crossed a line. Others praised her as a voice of change. Late at night, she stared at her computer screen, feeling the weight of her words and realizing that sometimes the truth carries consequences far beyond what anyone anticipates. The broader reality was impossible to ignore. Faith media, once built on loyalty and trust, was now under a microscope. Viewers were no longer passive listeners. They had become researchers, fact-checkers, and critics. In mere moments, they could pause a sermon, search the preacher's name, and uncover personal scandals, private jets, or lawsuits. The era of unquestioned trust was over. The Joni Lamb controversy had lit a fuse that extended far beyond Daystar. Churches, ministries, and Christian influencers across the country began re-evaluating their own transparency. Some hired public relations consultants. Others restructured leadership boards. Everyone could feel the shift. The world was watching with sharper eyes. Gone were the days when ministries could hide behind closed doors, secret finances, and silent rules. In this new digital landscape, one viral clip could unravel a legacy that took decades to build. Yet amid the noise, something profound began to surface. Beneath all the outrage and debate, people were awakening. They weren't just angry, they were yearning. Yearning for authenticity. For spiritual leaders willing to show humility, admit faults, and live transparently. They craved ministries that didn't hide behind rehearsed statements or PR spin, but that spoke with real honesty. The feud between Joni and Lynn came to symbolize something far greater. The collision between faith and transparency in the modern era. It wasn't merely about YouTube interviews or censorship anymore. It was about survival, how the faith community could exist in a world where truth could no longer be contained or controlled, only shared. Some church leaders quietly confessed their fear, not fear of being exposed, but of being misunderstood. They knew how easily an imperfect moment could be twisted by algorithms that thrive on outrage. Others saw this as a divine reckoning, a cleansing process sent by God to bring long-avoided accountability to light. For Joni, the following weeks were somber but steady. The online noise began to fade, but the internal questions persisted. She continued hosting shows, delivering devotionals, and smiling for the cameras. Yet those close to her noticed the difference. The spark in her eyes had dimmed. She had faced challenges before, but this battle wasn't fought in courtrooms or boardrooms. It unfolded publicly, with strangers dissecting her every move. For Lynn, the attention became both a gift and a burden. Her audience grew, yet so did their expectations. People wanted her to keep pushing boundaries and challenging institutions. But deep down, she realized this was never about courting controversy. It was about prompting reflection. About forcing herself, and the church, to wrestle with a timeless question. What does truth really mean when everyone believes they already own it? Months later, when the internet's attention drifted elsewhere, the story of Joni Lamb and Lynn remained a quiet parable. It stood as a reminder that faith doesn't make anyone flawless, and that power, especially spiritual power, requires accountability. The digital age had erased the walls separating the pulpit from the public, and no amount of image management could rebuild them. The future of faith-based media will belong to those who understand that trust is not something that can be demanded. It must be earned, one honest word at a time. Viewers no longer crave polished perfection. They want raw truth, truth that withstands scrutiny and doesn't require editing. Perhaps that was the real message buried beneath the storm. That even in chaos and conflict, something genuine was being born. A new kind of faith conversation, messy, transparent, public, and alive. Because if the saga of Joni Lamb and Lynn proved anything, it's that true faith doesn't crumble under questions. It endures them, and in doing so, becomes even more real.